All right, well, we'll start with our standard question, which is, how did you, tell me a little bit about the emergence or development of your identity as a feminist.
That's no small question.
Oh, it usually isn't. So.
Just like I really haven't thought about this much.
Yeah.
My emergence as a feminist. Well, it's hard to locate it, but I was going to high school during the 60s. I graduated in 1970. So it was a time when there was a lot of talk about gender issues. And really the feminist second wave was underway. Mm-hmm. And it's not really so much that I was deeply immersed in feminism in high school. That really didn't come till later. But I went to a very urban, I was in a minority as a white kid in that high school. I just can't help but think of that experience being in this very multi-class, multiracial, urban high school as a place where I was coming of age. I think it had a huge impact. I mean, it has an impact on how I think about diversity and my introduction to diversity. Even if, within the high school I was still playing some fairly gendered, I was a cheerleader and all of those kinds of, very gendered kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I think there was a piece that laid some groundwork for some real sensitivity to social and political issues. And within my family, again, not a hugely political family, or not a hugely progressive family, but I did get messages about. My father was a lawyer, and so sometimes we'd kid around about how eventually we'd have a law firm that was Bond, and Bond, which would include my father and my brother and me. So there were these things that I can remember that were sort of marking possibilities that were way beyond my mother as my mother, very educated, very smart. Actually went to Radcliffe. She went to an undergraduate at Swarthmore, and then went on to get, it was a certificate at Radcliffe in management. It was where all the white men were in the Harvard Business School, and the women who had any aspirations did this non-degree, quasi program that later would become part of the business school. And her class, she then became a stay-at-home mom, married, stay-at-home mom, had 4 kids. And it was her classmates really who I think really broke through to whatever extent women did. So it was a very traditional sort of white middle-class family with a mother who if she'd been born in another time, I think would have done something different. So some of the messages to me were that I was going to do things she couldn't do. And then even though we were in this real cushy sort of white middle-class neighborhood, I went to this very urban, multiracial, economically diverse. And I just think all of that set the stage. So that when I got to college, I just was very quickly drawn toward the consciousness. I had a women's group from my freshman year in high school all the way, not the same group, but a women's group from 1970 to into graduate school. And in different groups, but that was always an anchor for me. So it's very much coming of age during the high school piece in the 60s, and then college and graduate school in the 70s. So.
And at college, were you involved in sort of second wave or women's liberation type sort of political activities, or how did that play out?
How did that play out in college? I had been so active in student government and things like that in high school that I think when I hit college, I didn't really want to do the organized. It's sort of, I don't know. I think I just pulled back from a lot of that. It was much more personal. Like I said, I had my women's group. I went to Stanford. So for me, going to a school like that was real culture shock. I mean, I
West Coast
I was
sort of.
well, I grew up in Southern California.
Oh, okay.
So no, it was culture shock in terms of the elitism, in terms of the homogeneity. I mean, I know a lot of the kids that I teach now in college, they had the homogeneity in high school, and then they had the heterogeneity in college. I had the opposite. So I got to Stanford, and I did get kind of disillusioned by the level of privilege of so many of my classmates, and I did the year abroad and was traveling. But after my sophomore year, I ended up dropping out of school, and I went to live in Vermont with a cousin. And there I worked as an abortion counselor for a little while, and worked in a homeless shelter for kids, and I did several different jobs. So the organized political work, not sort of.
Right. Yeah.
I was part of the women's movement, is what it felt like. I wasn't, I did do some of the, got involved in some of the anti-war protesting and things like that, but not as any kind of organizer.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sort of around that, but much more sort of, it was really more personal networks of other women who were asking the same questions about gender, about sex roles, about sexuality,